Well, my friends, I am back. I am back with part 3 of our beautiful front lace raglan sweater. And I hope you're ready. Because now we're going to start making some transitions. Now we're going to start separating things. But before I get into that, I want you to see take a look at where I am, see if we're kind of on the same page. I made it to, I worked the lace and I made it to row 16. That's when I changed my needle on the wrong side row, on the purl row, because it's just easier. You don't have to worry about following the pattern. So I got a longer needle. If you're new, with knitting with me sweaters, and if you think you're going to knit more, I suggest getting number 9, 48 inches in length, or number 9, 60 inches in length. Just search the net. Just get what you can get, people. It will work. The magic's not in the needle. The magic's in you. So just if you're able to find some, it's so nice just to have that length. So I changed my needle on row 16. Now now I'm on the right side, and of course I'm ready for row 9. If you have made it, well, let me show you this. Let's turn the sweater like we're knitting it, because I'm going to be able to walk you through a lot of this now, this portion. So now let me just get it into place, like in the same position that we knit it in. All right, so here we are. So you say, Jay, I really worked hard, but I just couldn't keep my concentration, and I kind of messed up my lace a little bit, but I would like to finish the sweater if I can save it, if you can show me how. All right, if you can, like I say, if you can get to a right side row. Now, what you can do is count the stitches on your, in fact, don't count them yet, because there's so many with the yarn overs. This is what I call the cleanup round, or cleanup row. I'm going to clean up everything, and if there's any stitches missing, I will be able to add stitches as we work down the sweater. So hold on. So those that are ready to stop their lace, I want to take care of this first. Everyone who's working the lace with me, hold on a minute. Those that you've made it at least to a right side row, even if you didn't make it all the way up, but you're on the right side. I simply want you to knit. Let me just check and make sure that you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, I don't want to get too close because we got a lot to cover. All right, I think I'll just bring it up. All right, so knit your 5 border stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, when you slide the marker, okay, we're going to knit. You're going to knit all the stitches, but I still need for you to yarn over for the first yarn over and the last yarn over at the marker when we get over there. So you yarn over and then knit. Just knit. You're knitting across. You're knitting across. Now see, I've just worked row 9. So I have worked the lace. Those that are working the lace, you would just work across as you were normally working it, just like you've been doing. Okay, but the person who's stopping the lace, I work all the way, just knitting all the way across to this next marker. To the end of the lace marker. All right, knit the last stitch and then yarn over. You have to keep this section growing, but you won't be doing any lace. You'll just be knitting and purling. Knit and then purl back, knit and purl back. But you have to yarn over, the first yarn over and the last. So once you yarn over, slide the marker. Now this is still the front of the sweater. Does that make sense? We're still in the front of the sweater. All right, so in the front of the sweater, we just knit across. We just go ahead and knit till we get up to the increase marker. All this stays the same. Does that make sense? I'm going to pull in just a little bit now. Okay, so all of this stays the same. I knit up to the increase marker. Now, I do my increase on this side of the marker, knit into the front and back, knit the stitch, and then slide the marker. Stop. If you have reached your sleeve count, my number is 56. You just look on your schematic to see what number that you've been working towards. My number is 56. I've counted twice after I did row 16, and now I'm on the right side. I have counted each sleeve at least twice to see if I made it. I happen to hit my 56. So that means I do not want to increase anymore in the sleeve, but I'm going to knit across because I have to go finish it. I had to continue around on the other front. Does that make sense? So when I slide the marker, I would not increase. If you're off one stitch, say, or something like that, then you go ahead and increase whichever sleeve is off just to get your numbers up, okay? All right, so I would knit across. Now, if you notice, I put some markers here. This helps me to remember J stop. Don't increase the sleeve, because sometimes you have to know where you are on your sweater, that you're in the sleeve and not somewhere else. So I put 2 little markers here just to remind me I don't need to increase anymore in my sleeve because I reached my sleeve count. So now I just knit across. And that's where I am right now. You see my little caps on. So I'm going to walk you through this part, so then I'll finish knitting off camera and come back. And so as I knit across towards this other marker, I can see I put another one of those little locking markers just to say stop and look, think for a minute. Okay, I don't need to increase, so I just knit up to the marker, slide the marker. Now I find myself out of the sleeve. Now I'm in the back of the sweater. Well, the back of the sweater I have to continue to increase. It's not up to the number or close enough to the number that's designated. So, okay, well, first of all, let me just tell you this so you'll know what your number should be. I don't have my schematic in front of me. Oh, man. All right, but using myself as an example, okay, my number on the back, I started with 32 stitches, and that one extra stitch, 33. All right. On the back, if you notice, there are 2 sections of increase. You have one section over here. Can you see it? Let's see if I'm on. You see the Raglan increase. And for me, it's 26. I'm going to increase 26 times. And then you have, on this side of the back, you have to increase 26 times. 32 and 26, I believe, is 84, I hope. So that is a number that I'm trying to get to, or close to, in my back section. Well, I counted, and of course I'm not there yet. I need a few more rows. So that's what you need to do in order to find, well, how far am I, how many stitches am I looking to, increase for the back. Add 28 and whatever your increase number. If your increase number is 24 on each side, you'd have 28 plus 24 and 24. If you were, 36, and you had to do 28 increases, you'd have 36, then 28 and 28, because you increase twice. You increase on each side of the back. Does that make sense? All right, y'all, you with me? So I got to continue, so I increase on the back section and just go across and just keep going. I'm just knitting. I'm back in the sweater land now. Everything you've done before. I work up to this mark on the back and I increase. Slide the marker. Oh, I see a mark. I see this little marker right here. Stop, Jay, stop. This is the sleeve. You don't need to increase anymore, since you've reached your number. So now I'm just going to knit across. I'll just knit across, no problem, all the way to this side, so I'll know that this is the sleeve, part of the sleeve. Knit, slide the marker. Okay, now I'm in the front section again, so now I have to increase and then continue to knit. And if you are one that is stopping the lace, let me just kind of smooth this out so you can see it. If you're stopping the lace, once you slide that marker, you have to yarn over and then knit all the stitches that you have. Just knit across, taking your time. Don't drop any yarn overs or, do any more damage. Get to this last stitch, and before this marker, you yarn over again, slide the marker, and then knit the 5 border stitches. People that are doing the lace, you're just working as you have been working. Does that make sense? You just work whatever row you're on. So see, when I come on this side, I'll be finishing up with row number 9, and I'll work it across. Alright, so now at this time, the people who are not working the lace and want to stop the lace, once you, of course on the wrong side, we have to knit the border and then purl all the stitches back. That's when you can stop, because the stitches will be nice and clean and you can see them. Then you can stop and just count each front and see if the number matches. If one's off a few stitches or whatever, then make a note of it, how many stitches we need to add, and we'll just knit into the front and knit into the back, right over here in the corner somewhere, and right over here in this corner somewhere. As we come across, as you're knitting, we'll just knit into the front and back, keep knitting, go to the last stitch, yarn over, slide the marker, keep going until you reach the number that they both will at least have the same number of stitches. And that way nobody will know. Alright, that's a mouthful. I hope I didn't rush it too much. I just want to try to get to so that we can get the sleeves separated, and then you can start trying to try on your sweater or see how it looks or whatever. So whichever way you're going to want to finish your sweater, whether you're going to continue with the lace or stop it, just take your time, check your numbers, just get things to match, just so that it looks nice. Don't worry about mistakes. Remember what I said. Count your losses and let's keep it moving. Alright, I'm going to knit off camera and then come back and I'll show you how we're going to separate the sleeves. Okay, and show you how I separate my sleeves. Alright, back in just a bit. Alright, so I have worked off camera to get around my sweater, and I have worked the first half of row 11 for me, because I'm still working the lace. So if you're still working the lace, you got to stay in pattern, everything. Don't forget what you've already been doing. If you've stopped the lace, you're just knitting across. Be sure to have that first yarn over, knit across, in with the second yarn over, and now we're just knitting up to where we're going to separate these sleeves and put them on a separate needle. So as you can see, I have, let me check and see how this looks on camera. I have, because I still have my marks there, my markers. I want to make sure. Okay, just so I can, alright, so now I'm knitting up to my first sleeve. My numbers are, I've checked all my numbers, everything is, nice and even and equal, and so this is the front, so I still have to go ahead and increase. So I go up to the first two numbers. Like I said, I've just finished my lace. Now I'm coming around to the first increase marker, and just like before, I go up to the 2 stitches before. I knit into the front, I knit into the back of the stitch. The next stitch I simply knit. Okay, now stop, because I can tell, because I have those little markers so that I wouldn't get mixed up on which part of the sweater I'm on. I know now that once I slide the marker, these stitches belong to the sleeve. The sleeve is what I want to take off. So I'm going to take my little I slide the marker over, then I put my little point protector on. You see that? I knit up to that marker. I did the increase on this side, but there's no reason to do an increase because we're getting ready to transfer all of these stitches from my number 9 long circular to one of my 16-inch circulars. You see that? Now some people might do it. You know, back in the day, we did a lot of it on double point needles. But now, it just, to me, I just rather do it on these small circulars. Keeps everything neat and clean and just makes it a lot faster. So all I'm going to do is put the point protector on that side and pull it up out of the way. Now, I'm just going to transfer, just like this. Transfer, not work, just kind of like I'm purling. I'm in the direction of purling the stitch. And I'm just transferring each stitch from this first sleeve. Now, you know, we have 2 sleeves, so I'm just on the first one. So I'm going to just transfer. I'll do this whole one, and then I won't have to do the second one on camera. I'll go ahead and do this one on camera. So I'm transferring. Show you exactly what to do and how to do it. Okay? You're not working any stitches, you're just transferring, just like this. Don't drop anything, just take your time, transfer from that needle to this smaller needle, just the sleeve. I had 56 stitches, so that's what I'm transferring. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to just do it on camera, and then I don't have to reset. In fact, I'm going to just check and see if I hope I'm in enough light. Hope there's enough light. Just simply transferring. The thing of it is just not to drop anything. So I'm coming up to the marker that will tell me. Really, I don't need the marker now, I realize. Okay, so I just come up to the marker that tells me that's the end of the sleeve. So I'm going to grab, just for a second, because I don't want to lose any stitches, I'm going to grab my cap and put it on that one. Now let's see what we have. Pull it up. Now I have my 56 stitches on my number 9 16-inch needles, which will be a lot easier and ready to work once I come back. Once I finish whatever the fronts, and then I come back to work the sleeve, it's already ready to go. So let me show you the easy way. If you don't have caps, you can take something as simple as a little rubber band and take the 2 points of the needle and just twist it several times. And those stitches are not going anywhere. The needles are not going anywhere, nor your stitches. Now there's the first sleeve. Now just kind of tuck that away. Now let's see what we have. Let me make sure I'm on camera, because otherwise I'm going to have to redo all of this. Okay, so now you can see what we have. I have, and I can take off this marker now. Okay, so now I have my 2 needles, the original circular needle, and then I have this big gap between them. You see this big gap where the stitch is, but I have those on a needle. So, but now the main thing is to make sure, where's your yarn, your working yarn, make sure it's, there we go, It should be in the same place that when you stopped, right here on this side of the work, when I stopped to put these stitches on. And now, you see, there's a gap. So what do I do to fill the gap? This is how my system works, because, like I said, it's everything, I just go by the simple math of it. For me, when I started my sweater on my schematic, for my sleeve at the top, I cast on 10 stitches. Normally, I would put those whole stitches back, but this is a different style sweater than our regular cardigan. Okay? We're doing something different, a different front that's going to keep growing. So what I'm going to do for my size, I'm right in the middle. I had 10 stitches. I'm going to take 5 stitches. I'm going to cast on 5 stitches because I don't want my sleeve. This sleeve is not up at the top of your shoulder. This sleeve comes almost to your, it's about here between your shoulder and your elbows. I don't know if you can see it on my arm. So I don't need the same number or amount of stitches I would need if I was working from the shoulder. Does that make sense? So 56, and then I'm going to add 5 stitches, half of what I started with. So the person that started with 8 stitches, you're going to be adding 4. The person that started with 12, you will be adding 6. But that's 6 under each arm. So really, you're adding 12 more stitches. All right, to the body of this sweater. So here we go. How do I add those stitches? Now I'm going to show you how I do it. All right, most people just do the backwards, you can just take the yarn and wrap it around your thumb and put it like this. But to me, that is not a stitch, and it just looks funny. It's a little funny loop. I do where I actually cast on the stitch. So you could take a double pointed needle if you want to, and just stick it in the last stitch, like right here. I'm going to try to come close. Then knit into the front and into the back of that stitch. Okay? Let's do it again. Here's the original stitch. You can just take one of these little short double pointed needles, or it's just easy to work. All right? You knit into the front, pivot and knit into the back. So you have knit on actually 1 stitch. Does that make sense? I'm going to add 5. So now I go into it again. Knit into the front, knit into the back. So I've added 2. I'm actually knitting on stitches. Okay? Go again, knit into the front, knit into the back. That's 3. Again, knit into the front, knit into the back. 4, 1 more for me. Knit into the front, pivot and knit into the back. All that in. Now I have actually knit on 5 extra stitches. So let's see. So my stitch count went up from 56, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61. You have to kind of have an idea of your sleeve. But don't forget, you'll see that this sleeve will grow by a couple of more stitches when we actually start knitting in the round. But right now, so really, I'm going to wind up with more stitches than just these 5 that I'm putting on, or the 4 or the 6 you're putting on. Does that make sense? Without letting the sleeve grow so large that it just doesn't look right. Okay. Now, but let me just show you this little. You don't have to do this, but this is what I do. Because now you have to come over here and start knitting. And most people just start knitting. And see if you can close up that gap. Pull it tight if you can. Sometimes I will add an extra stitch so that there is, hopefully there's no gap. But I'm going to pull it real tight and see how it looks. Okay, I just added 5 stitches for me to close up this big gap. And now I just simply come over here and start knitting. Or sometimes I'll put an extra stitch on, and I'm going to back out. Because we're just talking, okay, so right here, I'm going to go ahead and add 1 more stitch, and I'll show you. I'm going to knit. It's kind of like when I knit in the round. I'm going to knit into the front. I take my needle in. It's a little hard on these. You can tell I'm not used to knitting on these metal needles. Knit into the front, knit into the back. This is like casting on 1 extra stitch. Front and knit into the back. Alright, now I'm going to slide the last stitch over to my left hand needle. Now I'm going to knit these last 2, or these first 2 right here on the left hand side together, and I'm going to pull it real tight. So now I have like a secure, I call it a nice secure connection, just like I would do if I was knitting in the round, which is, so now I have jumped over the gap, okay, and I have knit on the stitches so they are real stitches. And then I will start to knit around to the, around the back and over to the opposite sleeve. And then I will repeat the process all over. So that's why I have a second number 9 16-inch. They're inexpensive and I just buy a lot of them. Since I do a lot of sweaters. So now you just knit around like this. And then there's your arm space. And it will still grow by a couple of more stitches. So it's gonna be, it'll be large enough for you to try it on once we start actually working the sleeve. But right now we have to still continue to work the body, to work around. Alright, so the first thing now is to get around to the opposite sleeve. Don't forget, you still have to increase. You still have to increase. Now, I think I forgot to increase right here. So I'm just going to back up. As soon as I said that, I forgot. I took that marker out. Remember, once I passed this marker here that represented the sleeve, that's why I've got it on there, and I didn't stop and think. But once I got over here, so let's just back up for a minute. Let's just back up. And if you need to put that marker back in, you can do that. So let's just back up. Good thing I didn't go too far. Just kind of. It's not too late tonight. I think it's about 12. Oh. So I'm just backing up, but I can see where the raglan increase is, and it's right there. So I'm just going to stick my marker just so I remember. Okay, there's the marker, there's the raglan. So I knit 1, then I knit into the front and into the back to do the increase on the where I have the back of the sweater. Okay, now we'll continue to work around. Let's go back again. Now I can just work around. I'll move that. Then I'll stop and let you take a look at it. Then I'll check this on the camera to see if I did it right. But now that's what you have. So 5 stitches are half of what you started with. If you started with 8, you're going to add 4. If you're going to do the extra stitch method of connecting, you'd have to add that extra stitch. If you had 12 when you started up here at the very beginning, then you're going to take half and do 6. You're going to add 6 stitches to close in this big gap. Does that make sense? All right, let me work around a little bit. I'll double check everything, and if it's not right, I'll come back and take it out and we'll walk through it again. All right, take care and just transfer those stitches. Now, if you, before I just shut the camera off, if you weren't going to put it on, or if you didn't have needles, then that's when you're going to take a large needle, yarn needle, and just like I transferred it onto the needle, you'll have to transfer it onto a piece of this yarn, a big piece of yarn, bright color, nice and long. Transfer very carefully each stitch using the thread, the yarn and a yarn needle. Same difference. All right, now I can shut it off and I'll be back shortly. All right, my friends, since Of course, I stopped last night and I went to bed and I got up this morning. I thought, since I have to do the other sleeve anyway, let me just make sure I go ahead and film the opposite sleeve just in case. Sometimes what's easy for one person is not as easy for another. Some people pick it up real quick and go, oh yeah, that's the way I do it, or I do it a different way. So I'm just going to give you the steps again on how I do it and make sure it's nice and clear. Pull the camera in a little bit so that you can see it. So I have worked across the back of my sweater. And I did the last increase. There was a marker here. And I did that last increase for the back. Now, and of course, I have to use this. So I'm going to just take that marker off now because I've increased that back. And now my working yarn is still attached to this side. Then I take my number 9 16-inch needles, just like I shared on the front. I didn't take these all out. Then I just ran them through every stitch that represents the sleeve. So I just transferred them. Transferred every stitch slowly but surely so that I wouldn't drop anything. I transferred all the way around to this side. All right, now on this side the marker is still there, and so I just go ahead and cap that side just for a minute so I can show you how let's put that, and then I put a rubber band. Remember, if you didn't have caps, a rubber band will work just fine. Those stitches are not going anywhere. All right, because you don't know, hopefully you can finish the sweater right away, but then you may have, life gets in the way and you may have to take some time and come back. Well, your stitches and the needle will be here waiting for you. So now, look. I want to get to this, so this is what I want to just make sure that you understood. Here's this side of the back. All of this is sleeve, and here's the front. Well, I need to connect the back and the front. So I need to fill in this gap. And since my numbers, they work together. I start with numbers divisible by 4, and all of my formulas are based on that. So all I have to do has nothing to do with 4, what I'm going to explain to you now, but my numbers are very compatible. They line up mathematical. And every time I do something, at the end of the formula or whatever, everything lines back up. So on the sweater, again, I'll tell you, on the sweater, this is not our regular cardigan. That one is done a little different, but on this one, because there is so much fabric with all of this increasing of the lace, it's just increasing out. I don't need as many stitches down here in this gap. So for me, on my schematic, I have 10 stitches that I started my sleeve with. I'm going to take half and put it in this gap. If you're the smaller size, you had 8 stitches, so you're going to take 4 and put it in the gap. If you're on the larger end, you're gonna your sleeve count was 12, you're going to take 6. So, and this is how I do it. Alright, so like I said, you could easily just do a backwards loop on your thumb, which is what most people do, but it doesn't give you a true stitch, it just gives you a loop. If you drop the loop or mess up and all that, I just rather have a real stitch, and this is the way I get the real stitch. I take instead of using this one and losing stitches or whatever, I just take a separate double pointed needle, make it easier on myself. Here's the last stitch, right there on the needle. I simply go into this stitch, I'm going to bring it even closer. I'm going to go into that stitch, just like I'm going to knit, just like we've been doing. I'm going to knit into the front, I'm going to pivot, and knit into the back of that stitch, just like we were increasing. Now guess what? That's one complete stitch knitted on. It's not just looped on, it's an actual knit stitch. It's on there. You can see the bump, you can see everything. Alright, now I take the same needle, now I go into the stitch I just made. Now watch. Knit into the front, pivot, and knit into the back. Just like that. That's stitch number 2. That's a complete stitch. It looks like when we first cast on. See? Slide them up towards your tip a little bit, then go in again. That was 2. So now knit into the front, knit into the back. Sometimes it get a little tight. That's 3. See? I've got, just make sure everything is not twisted or anything like that. Just keep going. Knit into the front, pivot, knit into the back. Here comes 4. I need 5. That's half of the original count. Knit into the front, knit into the back. Now there's 5. Now you can stop and go ahead and we can connect, but I like to go ahead and add one more. That's what I wanted to make clear also. I want to add one more. I just call it, just a connecting stitch. So I'm just going to do one more stitch, knit into the front and knitting to the back. So I've cast on 5 plus that one extra stitch. Now this, if you look real close, you can see that it is a real cast on edge, not some loops. It's not this. See, that's not really a stitch, it's just a loop. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just sharing with you how I do it and why I do it. After years of losing loops and just making a mess, I decided to do this. Now I can go to this side. And now I can take the cap off. I slide it up. Okay, so now I'm going to have to remove my marker to do this, but I got to tell myself, okay, this marker tells me I got an increase to make on this side. Try not to forget like I almost did over there. So now I'm going to take, here's my opening for my sleeve, here's the last stitch. I take it and I slide it to the left hand needle. I just slide. This is the same way I connect when I do knitting, when I'm knitting in the round. I always make an extra stitch. I slide it to this needle, the left hand needle. Now I knit those 2 stitches together. This stitch that I just put on there and the first stitch here. I just simply knit them together to make I call it a safe join. I give it a good tug. Now I'm on the side that I need to, I have to knit 1. Then the next stitch I knit into the front and into the back. Just like that if that marker had been there. I connected, I knit 1, knit into the front and into the back of the next stitch, and now I just continue to knit across. Sometimes, after I go to bed and I think about it, I think, I could have made that clearer, but I didn't want to have to take loose everything. Oh, I've had enough of that on this sweater. Okay, so I'm going to just knit a few stitches. Now watch. Now look at that opening. Maybe it wasn't as clear and as neat, and I do it the same way every time. Now, remember what I said, when you're looking at things with the needle on the needle, it's very deceiving. This looks like, well, Jay, that's not going to fit. Trust me, this is going to just expand once we get this, start working the sleeve, then it starts to expand. And remember, there are also these hidden stitches that are automatic in knitting, in picking up stitches on this raglan style. See that gap there? We can fill that gap with 1 or even 2 stitches depending on what we need. It's on this side, that gap. It's also on this side once we start working the sleeve. So you have more than enough stitches that will fill up that arm space. And in fact, I'm going to show you, if you have too many, maybe we have 1 or 2 stitches too many, I'm going to show you how to take care of that too once we start on the sleeve. But for right now, I wanted to come back. I thought, you know what? Sometimes after you sleep on things, you think, you know what, I need to make that a little clearer, not only for you, but for myself, because I want it to be in my tutorial so that I can always use it as a reference point to how to fill in the gap under the arm, the underarm gap when you're working your sleeve, and make it really nice, and it's a real stitch. So now I'm just knitting across. I finished all that. All right, I will knit all the way up to my lace marker. For those that are doing the lace, you continue on whatever row you're on, just like you were working. Those that have decided to stop the lace, you're on the right side, so you have to be sure once you slide this marker to yarn over, knit all the stitches across on this side like you did the other side, come all the way up to the very last stitch, knit it, then yarn over, slide the marker, and knit the 5 border. So is that clear? Does that make sense? So I just wanted to make sure that it was not only that you could really see it, that I would have it on the tutorial for future references. Now you know how to do it. Okay, so now I'm going to work off camera and start working down the sweater. I'll work down so far and then come back and we'll do at least 1 sleeve. How about that? All right. Take care. See you shortly. All right, my friends, I'm back. I did a lot of, as much knitting as I could. Had a lot of things to get done, but I tried to get, I wanted to try to have as much of the front done so that I can show you how, well, we need to take care of the back. That's the next section that we want to take care of. All right, so, and I like to end, each part of the tutorial on a good note, on a high note, and let you see, look at mine, and then see if you have something that looks like my sweater. So this is just the overall real quick view. Here's the front again, and now you can see the nice V area in the neck. See, it's not a cardigan. And then you can see how the lace is growing, and it's growing into the shape of that resembles a shawl in the front. You know how the shawl just drapes down in front. All right, now we have, I'm going to count off everything and I'm going to turn it to the back. We have put both sleeves. I've gone over that. I even redid this, even took you through the second sleeve to make it nice and clear. Like I said, what's easy to one person may not be easy to another. So now it's on the tutorial, and I can use it for future references. How to close the gap under the arm space when you're knitting your sweaters. Now, let's done that. Now I'm going to turn, because this is what I want to end on this note tonight, or today, or whenever you see this. All right, let me just turn. Let me check my camera, make sure that I have the back. It's such a large piece here, you know, that, and I'm going to pull it down a little bit, maybe. It's not so high. Okay, how about that? It's hard working with a big piece of fabric. I want to get it on here. Okay, let's go. Let's go with that. All right, after we're working so far down, you can already tell, and some of you already picked up on it, well, Jay, the front is going to be much longer than the back. Yes, because we're doing that pretty shawl shape in the front. So here's my back, and you can see just by me laying it out, and it's not even laid out neatly, but you can see already. Look at my front. It's already beginning I call it the shawl dip. You know, it's dipping in the front. So now the next thing is to know, okay, how I need to find the length of my back. How long do you want your back? Now, this is not a hip sweater. So it just really goes to the bottom, you know, to your waist or right at the top of your hip. So far, I have worked, I'm going to tell you my numbers, but you know, I'm short. So far, I've worked almost 13 inches. I'm right just as, yeah, well, if I pull it a little bit, I have 13 inches so far. And I'm going to use a number 18. I'm going to keep working and try to get as close to 18 as possible. I don't have to hit it, people, because that chart tells you when we're going to stop. But that's the number that I'm aiming for. So you would do the same in your sweater. Just pick a number that you feel that you want to work your back down to. Just remember, this front is going to be even longer. Okay? But hopefully we'll get that nice shawl effect, and I hope to get the shawl twirl in the front from all this pretty lace. So now, but the main thing is, like I said, I'm going to work down towards 18 inches. The main thing is to stop before at least 2 inches, maybe a little more than 2 inches before you get to your complete number. I will stop. Instead of getting to 18 right away, I'll keep knitting, and then as I approach row 16 inches, see where you are on the chart. I need you to be on the right side on row 9, and you say, Jay, my back is long enough. I'm ready to at least stop the back, the knitting part, so that we can add the border. We're going to add the border about 2 inches before we get the complete number. And we're going to do it in the 1x1 ribbing. So you're going to have a nice ribbing section at the bottom of this back. And I want to show you how I'm going to do it. And let the front continue to drape and keep going. Does that make sense? So you've come a long way. And but it's almost done, and it's going to be a sweater that I think if our numbers are good. Remember, people, we're designing this. This is practice. This is why you don't use your best yarn. You know, I'm saving you time and money and frustration. We're working this to see if you like the style, if you like the sweater, if it's something interesting to you. It's, you know, I just thought it would be pretty to have that shawl front. And then, of course, you always can critique or check your numbers, and any number that maybe you find that didn't work, you can always, in my knitting, I always have a 4-stitch allowance, because my main numbers when you start are divisible by 4. So you can always go up 1, 2, 3, or even 4 stitches to give yourself a little extra room, or you can come down 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, okay, and still have a nice fitting sweater. Plus, we use large needles. I gauge my things once I started getting so fluffy. Years ago, I just went to a number 9. All that does is give you a little more, it relaxes the yarn just a little more, so that you get not such a tight fit as if I was using a 7 or number 7 or an 8. Maybe what the real yarn is gauged to by the little band, it'll say number 7 or number 8. I just automatically went up to a number 9, and positive ease. That's what I want to say. Positive ease. That's all that is. And like I said, it's a lot faster when you're fluffy to work with a little larger yarn and a little larger needle. That's all. So that's what we're up to. The next thing is to decide on your back. Continue to work the whole sweater, the whole chart, everything, and stop in the back at least 2, maybe a little more, before the total number, and be on the right side on row 9. And that's where we'll pick it back up together. And as you can see, I just turn it one more time to the front, and then I'm going to stop this part of the tutorial here. But I want you to have a nice view and to know exactly where we are and make sure we're on the same page. Okay, this is Jay, and I'm signing off on this section of the tutorial, but stay tuned. Of course, we have to get to the end, so there's more to come. All right, take care, and I will see you soon.